Hi, we're trying one more time. If this doesn't work, I think there's an eclipse, or there was one yesterday. If it doesn't work, then we have a plan B, which we're going to pursue. Anyway, this is a special 52 weeks, in between weeks, with Dara Caponigro. She, like my last guest, does not live on a device the way I do, so she is less familiar with its idiosyncrasies. Okay. So we're waiting for her. And again, if this doesn't work, we have a plan B. And we're going to do it the way Ann Pine and I did it, if she's having trouble. She asked if she was going to be fired. And I said, no, you're not going to be fired. Hi, Schumacher. I know she practiced with you guys this morning. Alas. I am not frozen. I'm just being, for a brief moment, quiet, which is entirely unlike me. Hi, Dennis. How you doing? Yes, Joy. We can chat. We can chat. Joy Moyler, beg your pardon. Congratulations, AD 100, so richly deserved. What a talent. You are having a star turn. Rightfully so. Dennis, is that a nervous smile? I think it could be. Hi, Sophie. We're waiting for Dara, who has a bit of a problem with her Instagram, which she is looking to fix. And there we go. There she is. Quest. Again, if this doesn't work, we're going to do it again. Dara? Yes, Dennis, I know. Dara! I see you, but I don't hear you. Oh, good. She's calling me from landline. Oh, I love that she has like a super cool landline.
Alexa? Alexa?
I can hear you.
Can you? Oh
I
my
can
God,
hear you.
yay.
Success.
It's not my best background. I have to shut my answering machine off. Give me a second.
All right. Well, at least we triumphed. I was starting to worry that it was my device, so this proves that my device works. So I'm glad.
Oh my God, I want to die.
Yay.
Hi, gorgeous.
Dara.
I'm sorry that was so hard.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you.
Wait.
I need to take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath and put your phone down a little more so I can see your whole face. There. Yay. So I wanted to ask you, what is your proper title at Schumacher?
I'm the creative director.
Okay, so you're the creative director, but it feels like you've galvanized Schumacher in the coolest way, and you've brought new meaning to creative director at a fabric house, as far as
that's nice. Yeah, because I think one of the things that makes my job maybe a little different than some creative directors is I don't just work on product. I work on marketing and visual merchandising, and I bring all my magazine stuff, the ability to tell stories and stuff like that to Schumacher. So
first, your magazine stuff, as you called it. Tell me how you got into business.
Well, it's funny. I think a lot of my life, I just kind of fell into it. But when I look back, it all perfectly makes sense. So my mom was a designer and my dad was a doctor. And I always had the yin yang of being really good at science and also really loving, design and art and things like that.
Lucky you.
And so when I was at college, I minored in biology and art history. And I was an English lit major. And I didn't realize it, but I looked through like old papers, and at one point when I was just graduating college, I had written to all the magazines looking for a job. I had written to Architectural Digest and House Beautiful, and I can't remember them all. But I had sort of like forgotten that because I thought I wanted to go. Eventually, I made my way to working at the Bronx Zoo, thinking I wanted to go to vet school.
Yeah.
And
So interesting.
I
Instead,
know.
you're
And then
working
I had
with you're still working with animals. We're animals.
a different kind of animal. I don't know. Things for me, like I didn't never really had a plan, and yet I sort of feel like my destiny was all laid out for me. It's
So,
strange.
what was your first job then in the industry?
So my first job was at the Cooper Hewitt Museum. So I had interned in college there, working for the director, and she really liked me and hired me right after college. So that was my first job, and I loved it. I worked in the director's office, and it was like going to finishing school.
Yeah.
So I got to meet like all the who's who of the design world, and I mean, I was her assistant slash secretary back then. But it was I learned how to write a proper thank you note, all the things that you don't necessarily know how to do. So
I
that
know
was
how to
really
do it,
fun.
but I'm very bad at doing it. But yeah, I think
I don't
everyone in my
believe
father's
it.
firm, we all started by answering the phones, and there's nothing wrong with learning how to do every job at an office.
Right, right, right. So, and then I had a friend who I had met there who wound up going to House Beautiful magazine, and she would let me know every time a job would open up. I didn't even know what she did. Like, it just seemed so vague and odd, and I didn't really understand it. But I would go and I'd interview, and I wouldn't get the job. And then I'd go and they'd call me back, and I'd go for that interview, and I wouldn't get the job. So that happened to me 4 times. And then
Why?
finally on the
Why do you
fourth,
think?
they didn't think it was like a good fit. I don't know. I can't remember. One was being the assistant to the managing editor. One was being the assistant to the architecture editor. But they did keep calling me back, so
Yeah.
I thought that was good. And then I landed the best job, and I landed the job because I worked at the Bronx Zoo, and they thought, well, if she can handle snakes, she can handle packing boxes. So that's how I got the job. And I had 2 amazing bosses who I am eternally grateful for.
And what was your title there?
Well, I started as decorating assistant. And, I met your father there. I remember going to High Point at Hickory Chair, and he had done his furniture lines, and just feeling like he so intimidated because he was so amazing and everything he touched was so beautiful. So it was a great experience. I met Mario doing that, early on in that job. All the big guns. It was really fun.
And that's when you decided, like, I found my place. Or did it still seem like, oh, this is so weird and big?
No, I really liked it. I really, really liked it. And I loved, back then we used to do a lot of shoots from the ground up. So we wouldn't just go into houses and shoot them as they were. We would create a lot of things. So that was really fun. It's one of the things that we do now for the Bulletin, which I think, our magazine, right?
Your bulletin is
of course,
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So, of course, we go into houses and shoot them, and they're beautiful, but we also do like a lot of fun, more, what's the word? Not cerebral, but kind of more, not so realistic, more creative. Like we did one for the last issue that I just love, where we have a new stripe collection. And so we found this old room in an old estate that had paneling, and within each of the panels, we put the stripes in different colors at different angles, and we had these big clear balloons, and I mean, it was kind of esoteric and weird, but so fun. So I love doing stuff like that.
You get to really decorate as well. I mean, you get to stretch your legs a bit.
Yeah, yeah. And one
so
of the things I loved about magazines and that I love about Schumacher is that there's a breadth to the styles that you cover, and so you can be any person you want on a given day, which is really great. Like I'm a classicist today, and the next day I'm like unconventional. So that's fun.
That is fun. And the decorators have to wait for that client to take us with them on whatever path, bohemian or classicist. But it must be fun to switch all the time.
It
Where
is.
did you
I
go for
love your
that?
house, by the way. God,
Thank
is
you.
that beautiful?
My father and
Where is
mother's.
that? Where
It's in
are you?
Southampton.
South. Oh,
Yeah.
to die for.
I'm in that
So pretty.
nice dark brown room. I just threw out my son who was doing school. I told him to go somewhere else. I was like, I need a nice room.
Well, I had a nice room until I had problems with my internet
Right.
connection. So now I'm in the kitchen.
Yeah,
So
but we get you, so that's important. So anyway, so what was your next job? Where did you go next?
So then I was at House Beautiful for 14 years, and I had two bosses at House Beautiful. I had Joanne Barwick for the first 4 years, and I got engaged. My plan was to go move to the West Coast to meet my husband and be married and figure out what to do after that.
Is he
But
from the
then,
West Coast?
I'm sorry.
Is he from the
No, but
West Coast?
he got a job on the West Coast.
Okay.
So, but then Lou Gropp, you know Lou Gropp, right? So Lou
Mm-hmm.
Gropp, for those who don't know him, was the editor-in-chief of House and Garden for years, and then he was the editor-in-chief of Elle Decor for like a short time, and then he went to House Beautiful, and he was incredible. It was
He
like a
was
whole other
incredible.
job.
Yeah.
So smart. He's still around, and I saw him not so long ago. He's great. Hasn't changed a bit, but so smart, and it was so challenging. It was like a completely different job. And I really learned how to become a journalist under Lou. And he let me, because I just didn't want to quit. Like, I didn't want to
Yeah.
move anymore. And he let me work bi-coastally. And he was one of those people who was really great. It's such a good lesson as a manager. He like let his people do whatever they needed to do to get, to feel fulfilled and whatever. And then you would work like 200% for him. Like I
Yeah.
would go, jump through hoops for him. I was so grateful to him. So
That's a
he was
wonderful thing
amazing.
to hear. And it's also,
Yeah.
it's interesting because when you think of somebody being a manager, that's got to be like the unsexiest job ever. When you think like, oh, what should I do to be successful? You never think good manager, but it is
Oh, it's so
so
important. It's so
important.
important. And you learn from your good bosses and you learn from your terrible bosses too. So
Um,
equally important.
everybody's not everybody. Two people say they have creative things that they want to share with you. They should email Schumacher, should they not? How do they?
Yeah.
Do you have like info at Schumacher or?
Or no, they can email me. So it's my first initial, last name at Ev as in Frank, S as in Sam, at co.com.
Say that again.
D Caponigro at fsco.com.
Perfect. Okay, so when you left House Beautiful, finally, that was after how many years?
14. And I worked my way up from an assistant to a director, which was really
And and
gratifying.
and those were some pretty epic years at House Beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
well, Lou was incredible.
yeah.
And I worked with Carolyn Englefield, who was also, she's such a pro. I learned a lot from her.
And then you went to Domino.
No, then I went to Elle Decor.
Then you
So
went.
I was at Elle Decor for 4 years, which was also a great experience.
Was that with Marion?
No, that was with Peggy Russell,
Right.
Margaret
Right.
Russell.
Right. Margaret Russell.
And,
And
and
then
and then I went to Domino, and that was incredible. I always say it was the best place. It was the right place, the right people, what's that expression? All the right people at the right time at the
yeah.
right place.
Yeah.
And it was really one of the best experiences ever. I feel
Yeah.
like,
And it really just arrived on the scene in such an incredible way.
yeah,
It was just like a voice that hadn't been there. And then from there, you went to
Veranda. So Domino folded, and that was kind of, I mean, in some ways it was a relief because we all worked so hard and it was so intense. I mean, we didn't approach a magazine story as a magazine story. I mean, it was just talk about epic. Everything had so much thought that went into it. So, I mean, I was really sad. I love the people that I worked with, but it was really getting to be a lot, nonstop
So wait,
work on
when you say
weekends.
you didn't approach things as a magazine, how were you approaching them?
Well, we approached it from a very educational standpoint, and so every story that we did had to be, we used to call it entry point. So if somebody, it had to have multiple entry points. So if somebody, for example, didn't like the look of the house or the room or whatever we were focusing on it, they had to take away something else. So it could be a lesson about hanging pictures. It could be, I don't know, there was always more than
Right.
just, you know, that initially met the eye, which I think was part of its success. Like people just like love that. There was so much to delve
Yeah,
into, but
there was
producing it,
practical meat.
yeah, but producing it was really exhausting. But I loved
Um,
it. I mean, it was
and
all positive.
it was very fresh faced too. It was a different. It looked different.
Yeah,
Uh, it yeah. In
yeah,
some
and it
ways, I
had
think it was
this
much more
wonderful,
democratic.
definitely. It had this wonderful way of being sophisticated, but also being very accessible, which I think my book is kind of like. You know, I mean, I like to think of it that way.
Definitely. So veranda. When you went to veranda, same thing. It changed overnight, but was like
Thank you.
arrived fully grown. It arrived.
Yeah.
Like it didn't have to grow into it or turn into it. It just you came ready to party. Like and it looked very beautiful, much cleaner, and felt, sometimes when you read a magazine that purports to be representative of a certain area or region, it can like patronize the area.
Uh-huh.
And that was definitely not the case with your veranda.
Well, thank you. I'm really proud of what we did at Veranda. I mean, so I took that over in 2010, and I had an amazing publisher that I worked with. Her name is Jen Levine Bruno. She's now the
Mm-hmm.
publisher of that whole Hearst Design Group in Town and Country. And we had so much fun, but we took that magazine in the middle of a recession and we grew the readership and we grew the advertising and we grew the circulation. But you know, Lisa Newsom, who started that magazine, I took what she already had and I kind of brought it, I made it fuller and brought it more up to date. You know, I really concentrated on the photography and the quality of the homes. And my mandate was to make it a national magazine, which I think we really did,
Oh,
you know, to
totally.
turn it from a regional publication to a national magazine. So I'm really proud of that.
So obviously, for when you're looking at photography, you want it to be beautiful, but what was your particular lens that you were looking to get to when you were doing veranda? What was the look that you had in your head? It must look this way.
Well, I wanted it to be very sensual. So I think that was one of its strengths, right? I mean, it had this beautiful paper, this beautiful
Mm-hmm.
photography. We ran the images really big. We did long stories. Like I would have people say to me, my veranda comes in the mail. I have dinner. I clear the table. I pour myself a glass of wine and I look at veranda and it's like taking a vacation without ever leaving home.
Yeah.
So it had a very sensual kind of like slow, beautiful pace to it. And so I would say that I kind of like a lot of the stories were things that maybe Lisa Newsom would have published, but I always tried to surprise people too and give readers something that they didn't think that they wanted, but then they fell in love with. That was something Lou Grob taught me. It's like you have to surprise people and give them what they don't know they want. And so
that's a hard direction to follow,
yeah, yeah.
because then you have to
But
become a
it's fun. It
futurist.
makes it more fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So when you decide to leave veranda, did you did you did you know you were going to Schumacher?
No.
So
So
I mean that's a very weird move to go
yeah.
from editor to creative director. I mean, now you've shown us that it makes perfect sense, but like what was going through your head
Yeah.
at the time? You must have thought this is weird.
Well, really what I thought was I'm quitting my job. I'm going to retire. I mean, I left. So I had been, you know, the Hearst Design Group kind of happened the last 9 months of my being there. And I felt like I couldn't, I don't know, it just didn't feel the same. Like the emphasis was so much on cutting and cutting instead of creating and creating. And if you're a creative person, it's hard to like be in that kind of atmosphere. So I was pretty disenchanted, and it had been brewing for a while, and I went up to meet the president of Hearst for a meeting, like just a standard meeting. And somewhere in the middle of the meeting, I blurted out the words that I quit. Like completely
you
unrehearsed.
went to the meeting not knowing that's what you were going to do.
No, no. And I
Oh.
don't
That
know,
must have been
something
some
came over
meeting.
me. I'm sorry?
That must have been some meeting. Was it like in like horrendous anger?
No, it wasn't. It was just like something clicked in me. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I went downstairs after the meeting and I called my husband and I was like, I just quit my job. And he was like, what? What do you mean you just quit your job? I was like, I just quit your job. He's like, but you don't have another job lined up. I was like, I know, but I just quit my job. So he was very supportive and actually pretty proud of me, because how many people quit that job? It's a hard thing to do. Like,
Oh my
there's
God.
so few and
I
far
mean,
between.
I wouldn't have. I mean, the fact that you could say to yourself, I'm a creative person and cutting is not going to work for me. I need to amplify and create. Like, I wouldn't have the nuts.
Yes, you would. Yes, you
No,
would.
I think I'd wimp out for fear of, like I'm a very practical person, like, like
Yeah.
that's very impressive.
But
Very.
that's what I mean. So then the CEO of Schumacher, her name is Terry Eagle, she called me and I thought, oh, well, she just wants to wish me luck. She's taking me to a goodbye lunch because we had a nice relationship. And then she offered me this job. And it was a lot like Veranda in that the company had a great DNA. It needed to be dusted off. It needed, you needed to analyze what was good about it, what wasn't good about it, and take it to be the best place it could, take it to the best place it could go. So that's what we've done, I think.
Oh my God, I feel, I mean, obviously Schumacher is one of the main places, always has been. We'd go to Clarence House, we'd go to Brunswick, we'd go to Lee Joffa, we'd go to Schumacher, we'd go to Scalamandre. Back when Scalamandre was on 57th Street, you guys were maybe on 56th, then everyone else was in the BBC building. And I think like when I was a young person, it was 12s, like you'd get a good 12 there. But it just the very fact of its being a few blocks away made it apart. Yeah, and it had like some great classic things, but yeah, I think you really just, as you said, you dusted it off. And now it's not just that the new partnerships with designers and the new fabrics are great. It's also it's the bulletin. It's like it's not a fabric house anymore. It's like a style center.
Well, that is the biggest compliment, because that's exactly what we're trying to achieve.
But it
thank
is.
you for that.
I was working on my bedding line with Eastern accents, and I found like a great embroidery with them, and then you guys took it.
Oh no, I'm
Damn it.
sorry.
Schumacher's got everything. Like they're on top of it.
Oh no, and you're still here. You're still interviewing me today.
If Dara liked it and took it, like I'm on to something. Yeah, I think your eye, as I've seen it in Domino, in Veranda now, is sort of you won't accept anything less than what you want.
Well, that's
like,
nice.
You don't see you developing ever. You always arrive fully formed.
Well, you should look at some of those early House Beautifuls that have my byline on them. I'm like,
I do
oh my
need to
God,
look.
I wish they would just disappear. So that's not true. But it is true that I'm a perfectionist and I keep going and going and going and going until I feel like I'm in a place where, it feels good.
So what's a typical day like? Because there's still so many questions about, like, there's so much that you're doing. Like, can you have
It's really mixed. I mean, I'm in meetings most of my days. So, and it's varied, so I might, like this morning I had a call, like an executive call. We have those 3 times a week where, there are 6 of us that get together and talk about different parts of the business. Then I might have a meeting about the bulletin, and then I might have a meeting with Tori Malott about I don't know, a million different things, videos she's working on. We're putting a lot of energy behind doing video, which is fun. Then I might have a conversation with our head of visual merchandising to talk about a showroom renovation, or our head of product development to talk about, the 2022 collections. So it's just really varied and really fun. One of the most fun things that I get to do is go in the studio, like when the things come back. Like, so basically, if you're working on a pattern, you'll send out maybe 6 different colorways, and then you put them all on the wall when they come back. And it's so fun to see it in person, see it after it's been, it's fully baked, and to select the colorways. Yeah. That's fun.
And I bought Schumacher Matuk sheets from.
Oh, you did?
My daughter's room. She got the whole kit and caboodle. The pink,
thank you.
sort of hatched stripes.
Oh yeah, Attleboro. That's beautiful. I love that one.
So
thanks, Alexa.
So that's a new thing. So licensing. So you have licensing, new product, visual merchandising, the bulletin,
marketing. Yeah, marketing in general.
What else?
Then I work a little bit on PFM's marketing. Our rug company. Yeah. And I think that more or less takes.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So what are your goals for 20, besides to get out of the house? What are your goals for 2021? To live? Well,
we have some interesting licensing things coming up. We have a really fun shoe collaboration with Margot Shoes. Do you know them?
No.
There are these 2 young women, and they design, I don't know, like 5 different styles. So they use some of our patterns on their shoes, which are so cute.
And what kind of shoes are these? Like slides and?
Yeah, some are slides, some are ballet flats, some's like just a little simple crisscross sandal. They're really cute. What else do we have going next year? We have some awesome collaborations. So I don't know if you know, but we've been collaborating with a lot of artists and artisans. So we have some cool collaborations coming up with some artists.
Give us some of your, like, not favorite, because you can't play favorites, but give us a rundown of some of your partners right now.
Well, coming up, I can tell you we have Happy Menacall. Do you know her? She
Say it
does
again?
the most Happy Menacall.
What a great name.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know her.
Well, you would like her stuff. So she's an illustrator, so we have a collection coming out with her. What else do we have? It's like all a blur, because I'm already thinking about 2022. Yeah.
So when do you have to have 2021 to bed? Like November, October?
Well, like everything through like July is developed of next year. And then we know what we're doing for the rest of 2021, but it's kind of putting the finishing touches on them. So it takes a while to design a collection. It takes anywhere from like a year to 18 months. Well, I want people to be surprised about that. We do have this, we're introducing this collection called Masterpieces, where we take something that's incredibly hard to make, and we're doing that like 2 or 3 times a year. So we have something coming out in, I think, April, that's an embroidery, that's all hand embroidered, and it's so beautiful, and it's based on something that came out of the royal family that is just so incredible. Like, you can't believe that
it's an
stuff like that can still
moment.
be made. Yeah, for sure. So I'm very excited about that.
So actually, that's very interesting. Do you imagine, okay, when you do something like a masterpiece, then do you imagine that it's going to be lucrative, or do you say, even if it isn't, this is an editorial moment? It's like the fashion show that sells the perfume.
I think the latter. I think it'll sell, but it's going to be $1,100 a yard. But it would make the most fabulous curtains ever.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like if somebody fell in love with it, it's so unusual and cool. But I would imagine that most people will buy it for like a small little chair seat or a couple of pillows or whatever. But one of the things I love about Schumacher and our CEO in particular, it's like we know that some things have to be commercial, but not everything. Some things can just be a passion project, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes through in the brand. Like we're happy to take some chances and just do things because we're excited about them.
And that's maybe an important thing for everybody. Like whether you're a decorator and your show house is
Yeah,
your big statement, or with any kind of licensing, there has to be something that you're not just making money from, that expresses your goals.
yeah, exactly.
Um, I was going to ask you something. I'm having a brain fog. Um, Shoot, it just went away. Sorry.
That's
Oh, I know
okay.
what it was. So now that we've been, have you been going to the office at all, or are you at home?
Yeah, thank God. I go like every other week, maybe just for a day.
So
And
does this change your revolutions in terms of when things launch, and have you decided to like throw out the calendar as it used to exist?
well, I guess in the spring, we had some trouble getting some of our product in from India and Italy and things like that. So we had to bump a few things out a few months, but for the most part, we haven't missed a beat. So we do monthly collections, and we've been able to launch most of our monthly collections on time. I mean, there were a few things that kind of like they were supposed to come out in July, and they came out in November instead. But
Um,
mostly, we're
you do a
full
monthly
steam
collection.
ahead.
How can you sustain all of that? How can you keep all of those things if you're coming out with monthly collections?
Well, the collections are not always like 50 SKUs, sometimes they can be 20 SKUs or something like that. But yeah, we rarely discontinue anything. Well, there's the website. And then, if showrooms run out of room, they know what sells for their territory. So they know they can take away the things that are less popular in their area.
So you don't
But everything's
inventory everything.
we inventory almost everything. Like we have unbelievable stock.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
is, that's something.
yeah, it was a decision that we made, and it's really pulled us through COVID because people can, first of all, our website's amazing. And second of all, they can still
Mhm.
get stuff. So that's good.
Um, and how many licensing projects do you have? You have the shoes, you have the sheets, shoes and sheets.
We have paperless post,
Yeah.
which is fun. What else do we have? Oh my God, I know I'm forgetting something. I think those are the major ones. And then we have a few coming out next week. I mean, next year, next week, next year.
Next week is next year almost.
That's true.
I think we'll let you have that on a technicality. Um, and how much of Schumacher goes into PFM?
Um, what do you mean? Like, do we take the designs at Schumacher and turn them into rugs?
Yeah.
We tried that for a while. We have one pattern, Citrus Garden, which I'm sure you know, which was a
Sure.
design that Joseph Frank designed for us in 1947. That's a fabric that has gone haywire. Like people just love it. And we did turn that into a flat weave rug, and it's sensational. It's like really an art piece. But mostly the two brands operate independently.
No. Somebody's asking, they say, how do you find your licensing deals? Obviously, if you're Schumacher, you can just like snap it. PFM is Patterson, Flynn, Martin.
Yeah.
But do you ever say like, this is something we want to get into, or do you let them come to you?
No, I mean, well, I'll say that we're not doing as many interior designer collaborations anymore. Like most of our focus has been working with brands. So we have a Cabana collection coming out in September. That's exciting. Forgot about that. We had a great collaboration with Johnson Hardig from Libertine. We did something with Vogue. And then we've been really focusing on artists and artisans. So, there's a slew of them, but like Caroline Hurley and Porter Telio and people like that.
And people are wondering, I mean, I obviously know how to get it as a decorator, but how do people who aren't decorators get your product?
Well,
Can
there are
people
those.
buy cut yardage online?
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, I think the place that does that most for all the brands, you know, whether it's Schumacher or Cravat or Scalamandre or whatever, is Decorator's Best. Do you know that website?
No.
So she sells retail. And
Of
then
all
there's
the
an,
major fabric houses?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. I usually go on to Etsy
Yeah, you can find
when I'm
stuff on
looking for
Etsy
yardage.
because people buy it and then they resell it. Unfortunately, we can't really control it, but you can. I mean, it's nice because the consumer can get it if they want. But I'm all for hiring decorators because they make your life so much easier and create so much beauty and save you money in the end.
And how can people get the bulletin if they want it and they're not
So
decorator?
if you
Because
go
the
on
bulletin's
that,
amazing.
thank you. I'm having so much fun with it, I have to say. So if you go on fschumacher.com and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can find there's a square, you know, like a tile that says subscribe to the bulletin. That's the easiest way.
Okay. So everybody should subscribe to the bulletin because
Yes,
it is really a
please.
treat.
Thank you.
Is that your favorite part of your job?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite part, but it's one of my favorite parts. I mean, I do love it. Like, I think if I didn't have it, I'd be sad. Because, you know, if you're a magazine editor for so many years, it's sort of sad not to edit a magazine anymore. And the Bulletin is really the magazine that I've always wanted to do. It's like I inherited Veranda. I kind of had to stay within the confines of what that was as a brand. Domino was a brand that was based on Lucky Magazine. The Bulletin is anything we want it to be. And what I love about it is, like, depending on what we feel like, if we're excited about something, we cover it. Like, it doesn't have to fit within the confines of, like, oh, you do this month, we have this column this month, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same repetition that a regular magazine might.
And what's your least favorite part of your job?
What is my least favorite part?
Like, are you able to delegate?
Sometimes it's like, yeah, no, the creative stuff for me is always really fun. And I love the business part too. But sometimes, like, owning the business part, it's very like, if it doesn't come naturally to you, you know, like, I'm not an Excel sheet person, but I have to navigate Excel sheets. So I suppose it's that, you know, like, sometimes I just feel like a fish out of water and I'm like, oh my God, how do I do this again? And, you know, but I'm getting better at it and it's a challenge.
That
And
must have been
good for you.
a really steep learning curve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had budgets at Veranda, but I wasn't steeped in the business. Like, that was more the publisher's job as I am now. So I am really, like, I'm a businesswoman now, which is really
You are.
exciting. Yeah. So you just
Like,
keep growing. I mean, I'm so grateful.
yeah.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
I think I think what you've done at Schumacher probably has opened people's minds to what being a creative director at all kinds of companies could actually mean. You know, that you can come in with a beautiful eye, and if you're tenacious and driven and can obviously put a lot of attention and a lot of work in, you can turn it into anything.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
Because you're doing so many things that I just wouldn't have expected from a fabric house, and
Right.
it's
Right.
inspiring.
Yeah.
And knowing that you do 12 launches a year is really really fascinating. So when you talk about Lou Gropp saying, you know, you need to surprise people, does that direct what you? I mean, how do you even? I think it'd be relentless to come up with 12 things, 12 different collections, but really exciting. But how do you get the juice for it?
Well, you know, for one thing, it doesn't all come from me, right? I mean, it takes a
Yeah.
village, and I have a really, really talented team. So, you know, whether that's on the product side or the marketing side or, you know, wherever. But I don't know. Don't you like in everyday life just like, oh, I'm sick of this, I want to do this, or I'm sick of that and I want to do
Yeah,
this? And
like I'm sick
yeah,
of being awake. I want to go to bed.
so you
Isn't it
just
night
kind
yet?
of so my thing is I just pay attention to that inner voice and like what I personally am sick of or craving or whatever, and then you turn it into a reality, whether that's a kind of product or a color or a magazine
Yeah.
story or whatever it is.
Do you get to just pick a color like at 1 month and say this is going to be our color?
Yeah, I predicted brown. I predicted the comeback in brown before it came back. So, but I
Did
think
brown
it's because
go
I,
away?
yes, it did. It was
Oh my
all gray. Everything was gray,
God.
gray, gray, gray.
Oh
And I
yeah,
love
yeah,
gray. But I think I get sick of things before most people do. And so I'm already on, which is really good for my job because then you can be a step ahead. And then you can have the product ready when
yeah.
people have made the switch themselves.
Where are you? I feel like Schumacher is very yellow loving.
Well,
Where do,
our brand color is yellow.
so how do you feel? Yeah, that's probably why I think it. So I feel like I'm talking to people like I feel like yellow for the past, and like I don't mean like Colfax and Fowler yellow. I mean like sunshiny 1980s yellows. I still have trouble with. I think it's PTSD
Uh-huh.
from the
Uh-huh.
80s.
Well, that happens. That happens.
But right now,
You
I'm
know,
feeling pink. Pink is really doing it for me right now.
I like pink. I like green. I love like a bottle green. I guess
Hmm.
I'm really into that right now. But it's funny because Pantone just announced its color combination of the year, and it's our brand colors. And the reason that it's yellow and gray, and the yellow is supposed to be for optimism, and the gray is a
For
certain lends a
reality,
certain sophistication. And that's how they describe it. But I think that's what I was after when we came up with those brand colors.
yeah.
Because I think of
William
Schumacher as
Lee.
that way.
William Lee
I'm
is
sorry.
loving. William Lee is loving listening to you and is very excited by bottle green. Uh,
Well, he has a great story. He's going to be in our next bulletin, so you have to stay tuned.
oh,
So fun.
ever since William Lee moved out of my building, now I just am an adoring fan because that's the only way I can
Aw.
consume his genius. Um,
He is the
so
best.
how far for the bulletin? Because I think now with social media, we all in the design world, whether we're doing it properly like you are or doing it improperly like I am, we have to
Hardly.
we have to figure out our content, right? And you have to kind of get in front of it if you want to be planned. So how far in front of your content do you like to remain? Like do you like
So
five
we
months in
don't,
the bag?
I'm sorry.
Like 5 months in the bag?
Not even. Like we shoot for each issue, so we don't have a bank. So, yeah, we're kind of doing it as we go. But part of that is because we're such a small team and we're doing it on top of our regular jobs. So we just aren't that organized to
How big
have
is your
stuff
team?
in the bank. It's like six of us. I mean, for the bulletin, it's not a very big team. My entire team, I don't know, maybe it's 50 people, something like
So,
that.
so that's, are you as good of a manager as Lou?
I hope so. I try. I mean, I take it really seriously.
What are the give me tips. What I mean seriously, if you identify Lou's being a great manager and you are a manager, what are you trying to do? What are your big goals?
Well, I always try to give feedback at the moment. It's like being in a relationship, right?
Mhm.
So I try not to let things build up. I whenever I say something that could be considered critical, I always start by saying something positive. You know, and I'm not really critical. I mean, I'm very supportive of the people who work for me. I think they know that. Like, I'm so appreciative and indebted to them. I try to be kind and fair and sometimes I think just being a human being is all it takes. You know what I mean? Like, just be nice. But I do push, like I'm not a mamby-pamby. Like I say, this is great, but it could be better. So sometimes I think that's probably really hard for them. But I do it in a nice way.
Yeah. How many bulletins have you done from its inception?
So we're working on volume, I think 12 or 13. So our next one comes
Really, is
out
that
in February.
it?
Yeah, that's it.
If everybody right now goes, somebody already said they're going to subscribe. If they wanted to get a backlog of the 12, could they get it?
I don't know if they could get all 12, but they could definitely get a lot of them. So
Couldn't you make
email
that
me.
couldn't that be like a Christmas gift offering? Like the
Yeah, it's a good
12
idea. It's
bulletins?
a good idea. I mean, one of the fun things would be to see how much it's transformed because it started as a newspaper. It was like we had a Miles Red collection, and so we did his own little newspaper all about Miles, and then it just morphed from that into like a full-fledged magazine. So I can thank him for that.
I remember having lunch with you right before his book came out. And we were talking about his book. He definitely has a great finger on the pulse for the ending way. I got a battery alert. But I feel like you and he are very simpatico with what you love in publishing.
Yeah, but we're so different in terms of our aesthetic. I mean, it's really funny, but I think that's what makes it fun, right? Like I can appreciate what he does and he can appreciate what I do, but we meet somewhere, but it's not necessarily, I don't know, like it's funny because I had him come over. This was many, many years ago and give me a consultation.
Uh-huh.
And he said, I see white plaster palm trees and a leather bed skirt. And in retrospect, they were all great ideas. And I thought they were great ideas, but just not exactly me. Like they were much more glamorous than what I would do for myself. But I have enormous appreciation for what he does.
What is your style?
So, I mean, I don't use a lot of color. It's pretty, I would say edited. How surprising, right?
Well, I can see you liking so many things that it might even be hard to settle.
Yes, it's a mix of things. Like I love antiques, I love modern things. I think to me, it's all about like getting the balance right. And it's pretty neutral, but it's going to be in the next bulletin, so you'll have to tell me what you think.
So living there in this past year, are there any fails that you need to fix? Or things that
That's a
you've
good
grown out
question.
of that as you've been living there, you're like, no, this isn't right.
Oh, you mean in my house?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's constant. Totally. Are
Yeah.
you kidding?
Do you constantly redo things?
Well, I've been redoing them a lot since COVID because I've been trying to get my house, ready for the bulletin. So, but yeah, I've made some bad mistakes, some not inexpensive mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I bought a sofa that I really hate.
And do you still have it?
I'm working on changing it. So, yeah. I mean, it's hard. I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, I'm sad to report that when I expanded the apartment, I took my white bedroom and I moved it into the new master bedroom and did everything in support of it, and had it published, and then said, "This is terrible," and I had to start from scratch. And
Yeah.
it cost so much money, and I just had to say to Pavlos, like, bear with me, you'll never see a bill, but I've got to change it. Like, the room needs to be purple. And he was like, what? So I think, no matter how much we think we know ourselves, we can still have less to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that always surprises me is like you make one small change and it can change everything in the room. And then you have to figure out like how to accommodate it. You know what I mean? any little thing shifts everything else. And so that I always find surprising, and it's a challenge, but it involves moving things to another room, trying to sell something sometimes, right? But you're a pro. I'm not. I mean,
Yeah, well,
you're
this was,
amazing.
believe me, it was a terrible, terrible, epic expense to fix, but it had to be done. I've been talking about it a lot this past year, that I don't think we can get away with, designers can get away with being the cobbler with no shoes.
Yeah,
We
that is true.
at least not at my age. You
But
know,
don't you think it's so hard to do it for yourself too? So you have
I
to cut
do,
yourself a break. It's so hard.
I do, I do think it, and
Yeah.
sometimes, um, like my entry, I had to like get everyone in the office involved. Um, so anyway, thank you so much.
Oh my
I'm
God,
sorry
thank
we
you.
started late, and I'm sorry I'm kind of hustling you off at exactly 2 on the dot, but I'm now
Perfect.
at 8%. I don't know how I keep doing that.
Well, I'm
Um,
sorry I had trouble. So,
no,
but
I
it's,
I'm so looking forward to, say again, you've got Schumacher. I'm already buying it from Matuk. You've got the bulletin, which everybody can subscribe to if you go to the Schumacher website. If you have questions or things for Dara, you can reach her at DCAPONIGRO at F as in Frank, S as in Sally, co.com, right?
that's right. That's
So,
right. And don't forget, we have a new book coming out. I have a new book
and
called
that comes
Essence
out
for
when?
Style. Yeah.
When does it
So
come
it
out?
just came out September. It just came out, and it's already in its second printing. So yay.
God, Rolling Stone gathers no moss over there. And all these new lines. And yeah, now that I know that you come out with a new line every month, I'm going to be much more diligent about visiting the website to see it as it hits.
Yeah, check us out.
Yeah.
Thank,
Thank you, thank you, thank
thanks,
you. You're
Alexa. You're so
doing
sweet to
such an
have
amazing
me.
job.
Thank you. As are you. Okay, bye.
Kisses. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.